Guido Fawkes, otherwise known as Guy Fawkes, was born on April 1570 in Stonegate, York. He was an Englishman who aimed to spread Catholicism in a time where religious tensions between Catholics and Protestants were very high. He is known for being the main conspirator of a group that attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament in an attempt to kill King James, as they wanted a Catholic on the throne. On the 5th of November 1605, an anonymous letter tipped off the authorities about the plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament, and as a result, Guy Fawkes was caught with 35 barrels of gunpowder and was arrested. He was caught in riding attire, as he was planning to get away. He gave the name John Johnson to the authorities, and was first interviewed by the men of the King's Privy Chamber, where he would refuse to speak to the interviewers. Due to Elizabeth I's religious settlement, Catholics were forced to worship secretly, and once King James was crowned, he refused to offer Catholics more religious freedom. The aim of the plot was to get rid of the Protestant king and Parliament and give Catholic leaders the opportunity to run the country. Fawkes was brought to the king and questioned on why he was in the cellars, to which he answered that he wished to blow up the Scottish king and that he wished the plot hadn't failed. Surprisingly, the king admired his honesty. Throughout the 6th of November 1605, Fawkes remained relatively quiet and refused to offer any of the names of his co-conspirators. After this, the king wrote, "The gentle tortures are first to be used onto him, and this by steps extended to greater ones. So Godspeed your good work." Guy Fawkes was transferred to the Tower of London, and the king prepared questions to ask the man who claimed to be John Johnson. The torture was carried out in the Tower of London to obtain a confession from Guy Fawkes. They began, as the king requested, using methods such as the manacle. Whilst in the Tower of London, Fawkes expressed to Sir William Wadd, who was in charge of his torture, that he prayed each night that by planning to blow up the king, that he would in part save his own soul and aid in advancing Catholicism, and was told in response that he would be interrogated until the lieutenant of the tower had gained the secrets of his thoughts and accomplices. As a result, it's likely that Fawkes was subject to the rack, which was one of the most feared and brutal forms of torture, and aimed to tear the victim's muscles, dislocate their joints, and break their bones. As a result of this, Fawkes gave up the names of his co-conspirators. The signatures from Guy Fawkes' pre- and post-confession are haunting, and truly show how brutal his time in the Tower of London was. All defendants were found guilty of high treason, and were sentenced to being hung, drawn and quartered. On the 31st of January 1606, Guy Fawkes and his 3 conspirators were dragged from the Tower of London to the Palace Yard at Westminster, and were shown the building they plotted to destroy. The 3 others were hung and quartered. Guy Fawkes was the last in line to be hung, and was severely injured from his time in the Tower of London. As he was climbing the scaffolding, he appealed for forgiveness from the king, and promised to uphold his Catholicism. Accounts say that Fawkes jumped, breaking his neck, sparing himself from his horrific punishment. He was quartered after this, and his body parts displayed on the 4 corners of the kingdom as a deterrent. To this day in England, the 5th of November is still celebrated annually. It's commonly known as Bonfire Night, and people around the country and some of the Commonwealth let off fireworks and make bonfires as a tradition and way of remembering the events of November 5th, 1605. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.